Okay, so we're at the bottom of Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara continues here discussing the subject of leaving food before Shabbos on the in the oven or on the stove. In what cases it's allowed, in what cases it's not allowed. We had a lot of information that we learned yesterday. Let me just sum up quickly the points that we learned. First of all, we learned about the two halachas of shehiyah and chazara. Shehiyah is a person that wants to leave the food on the fire for Shabbos. And over here there's a basic machlokes that we find here and in other places before in the first perek between Hananya and the Chachamim. When it comes to the Isser of Shehiyah, Chachamim will geyser that a person may come to stir the coals on Shabbos if you leave food there. Hananya says that's only if the food is not cooked, k'maichel ben drusai, a third or a half cooked. Chachamim say the Isser of Shehiyah is even if it's cooked k'maichel ben drusai, unless it's fully cooked. If it's not fully cooked, there's an issue of a person keeping it on the fire on Shabbos. That's one concept we learned yesterday. The other concept we learned yesterday, which it says in the Mishnah, is grufa and ktuma. When a person either shovels out the coals of the oven or he covers it with ashes to cool it down. Grufa and ketuma is what's going to be the heter in a case where it's not allowed to keep it on Shabbos on the fire. That's something we have to keep on in our minds. Grufa and ketuma. As long as it's covered or shoveled out, then it's going to be mutter to leave it before Shabbos.
Which today is the.
So what's grufa and ketuma today? Grufa and ketuma today is the blech that we use. Today we don't shovel away the fire. The fire is there, but we cover the fire, which is like ketuma. Like then they would cover it with ashes to cool down the fire. Today we cover it with a blech to cool down the flame of fire that you place the pot on. Right? According to most opinions, what's necessary to cover with the blech is not the knobs. The main thing is to cover the actual fire itself, to cool down the fire, to make a heker that you're not using the full intensity of the fire. So it reminds you not to play around with the fire on Shabbos. That's the other concept we learned yesterday. Now, another concept we learned about yesterday was mitztamik v'yofaloi, mitztamik v'raloi. What is the difference between the two? Mitztamik means when you cook food, it condenses. Sometimes when you cook, the longer you allow it to cook, it'll become ruined. It condenses, it dries up. That's mitztamik v'raloi. Mitztamik v'yafaloi is that the longer you cook it, the more tastier the food becomes. Like a cholent, that the longer you leave it on the fire, provided that you're not burning the cholent, but if it's on a proper flame, the longer it cooks, and the food condenses and it gets tastier. That's mitztamik v'yafaloi. So the Gemara said that in the case of mitztamik v'yafaloi, there could still be an issue of keeping it on the fire without a blech because you want it to continue to cook. It's getting tastier. So therefore you have to have a blech for that. That's another concept we learned yesterday. And another concept we learned is, which is going to come up at the end of today's blot, we'll learn in Mitzvah Shem, smicha. Putting something near the oven that's not god of a kotum. You haven't placed it on top of the oven or inside the oven. You're placing it near the wall of the oven. And it's not god of a kotum. Is that allowed on Shabbos? And the Gemara's conclusion yesterday was that it is allowed to be done on Shabbos. If it's near the oven.
Chazara.
Oh, and then there's another concept. Thank you for reminding me. There's another concept of chazara. When you take a pot off the fire from Shabbos, are you allowed to return it on Shabbos? And that's what we're going to learn today as well about. We're going to see Barichis that we follow Beis Hillel's opinion that says you're allowed to return it to the fire on Shabbos. The condition we had in the Mishnah was that's only if it's gadol v'kotum. Either the coals are shoveled out or covered, then you're allowed to return it to the oven of Shabbos. If it's not gadol v'kotum, you may not return it to the oven on Shabbos. And we'll see additional conditions in the Gemara today. Okay, I just want to recap and review these concepts because we have to familiarize ourselves with all of these terminologies. Gadol v'kotum, shehiyah, chazara, and so on. Mitztamik v'raloi, mitztamik v'yafaloi. So it's going to be relevant for today's Gemara again. Let's continue inside. The question was asked from Rab Chia bar Abba. Now we're right at the top. We're right at the top of Lamed Ches Amar Aleph now. Shachach kedeira al gabe kira. So the first amud of what we're going to learn today is going to be about a person that forgot. He was over the isser of leaving the food on the fire on Shabbos without a blech. Could he eat that food in a case where the blech is necessary? and he left the food there without a blech. Is he allowed to eat that food on Shabbos? Shachach kedeira gabekira. He forgot the pot on the oven. And as Rashi explains over here, it's talking about without a blech. According to the opinion of Chachamim, that not until the food is fully cooked is it allowed without a blech. So he left it there. Ubishla b'Shabbos, and it cooked on Shabbos. Mahu, what's the halacha? Could he use the food or not? Ishtik, Rab Chia bar Abba was quiet. He didn't answer. Lamachar, the following day, Nafak v'darash luhu. He came out and he answered and he told the ones that asked the question. It says in the Mishnah, Hame vashel b'Shabbos b'shoigig. What happens if a person actually cooks on Shabbos? On Shabbos itself, he was over the malacha of cooking on Shabbos. If it happened b'shoigig, then yoichal. Then he's allowed to eat it. B'mezid, if he cooked on Shabbos b'mezid, lo yoichal. He's not allowed to eat it. There are further machlekes about this in other places in Shas, which the Gemara does not bring over here, but here the Gemara only brings this point. B'shoigig, it's allowed to be used. B'mezid, it's not allowed to be used on Shabbos. Then Rab Chia bar Abba added, v'loi shna. In our case, where a person left the food on the fire from before Shabbos without the proper blech, without garov and kotum, so then there's no difference. V'loi shna. We don't distinguish between shaygig and mezid. So the Gemara right away asks, mai v'loi shna. What does it mean that we don't distinguish between shaygig and mezid regarding the case where a person left the food on the fire without garov and kotum? So the Gemara brings an argument. Rabbi and Rav Yosef Damri Tarvayu. Rabbi and Rav Yosef both explained lehateda. There's no difference regarding this case where he left the food on the fire without garov and kotum, and it's going to be mutter to use both in the case of shaygig or mezid. And he explains what's the reason. When a person cooked on Shabbos, he did a maisa malacha on Shabbos, so therefore b'mezid lo yoichal. B'mezid is not allowed to eat it. It's a knas. Aval hai delei ka'avid maisa. This individual that did not do a maisa malacha on Shabbos, b'mezid nami yoichal. He was over on a takanim d'Rabbanan, so therefore even b'mezid he could also eat it on Shabbos.
Right, because he put it before.
Yeah, because he didn't do a malacha. He didn't do a maisa malacha. That's the opinion of Rabbi and Rav Yosef. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak argues and says, no, lisura. Actually, we're more machmer in a case where a person left a pot on the fire without garov v'kotum, even more than the person that cooked on Shabbos itself. And over here, it's going to be also both b'shoigig and b'mezid. What's the reason? Mavashol hu deloy asi le'erumi. In a case where a person is actually cooking on Shabbos, a person is not going to come to be maidim. He's not going to come to trick us. He's not going to lie. If it happened b'shoigig, he's going to say it happened b'shoigig. If it happened b'mezid, it happened b'mezid. He's not going to go and do it b'mezid and then come and tell us that it was b'shoigig in order to be able to eat it. We're not choishish a yid should go and do such a thing. Therefore, over there, they did not make a distinction between over there is a distinction between shaygig and mezid. B'shaygig yoichal. So therefore, b'shaygig, he's allowed to eat it. Aval hai the osi lerumi. Over here, leaving the pot on the fire before Shabbos, he might do it b'mezid, and then say that it was b'shaygig. Since this is not a malacha mamish doiraisa, so we're choshid that he might do this b'mezid and say it was a shaygig. So therefore, b'shaygig nami lo yochal. They were geyser in such a case that whether this happened b'shaygig or you did it b'mezid, either way you shouldn't eat it. So they were actually more machmer in this case of leaving the food on the fire before Shabbos without garov v'kotum, without a proper blech. And this is actually the final halacha. We go l'isser, as we'll see here. The proof the Gemara brings from a brayse that it's mashma like this opinion of Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Let's see. The Gemara brings now a question from a brayse actually on both opinions. The point of both opinions is that we don't distinguish between shaygig and mezid. When you cook on Shabbos, we distinguish between shaygig and mezid. If you left it on the fire before Shabbos, we don't distinguish. The only machlekes is whether we're machmer by both or we're mekel by both. Now the Gemara is going to bring a brayse where it does make the distinction between shaygig and mezid. Meisvei, now we learned in a brayse, shachach kedeira al gabe kiro bishla b'Shabbos. He forgot the pot on the oven without garov and kotum. And it was cooked on Shabbos, or bishla b'Shabbos, and it got cooked on Shabbos, b'shaygig yoichel. If it happened b'shaygig, you could eat it. B'mezid lo yoichal. B'mezid, you don't eat it. So right here you see in the brayse that it makes the distinction between shaygig and mezid. Not like Rab Chia bar Abba said, v'lo yishna, that there's no difference. The Gemara continues and brings the rest of the Braisa. When is all this said over here that b'mezid it's not allowed to be eaten and b'sheigig it is? B'chamin shol yihuchmu kol tzarkan. If it's hot water that wasn't fully heated, fully boiled, or v'tafshel shel bishul kol tzarkai, or food that wasn't fully cooked. Aval chamin shel huchmu kol tzarkan. Food, hot water that was fully boiled, tafshel shabishal kol tzarkai, or food that was fully cooked, bein b'shegig, bein b'mezid, whether it was b'shegig, whether it was b'mezid, doesn't make a difference. Yoichal, you could eat it on Shabbos. Okay, once it's fully cooked, even if it's not God of a kotum, it's okay, you could eat it on Shabbos. Divrei Rab Meir. This is the opinion of Rab Meir. So Rab Meir, the point is, he doesn't make any chiluk between hot water and cooked food. And by both of them, once it's boiled fully, cooked fully, then you can eat it. Rabbi Yehuda says, hot water that boiled completely, so then without a blech, without God of a kotum, it would be mutter. What happens when you have hot water and it's fully boiled? Nothing, it just evaporates. There's no point in continuing to boil it. And therefore he doesn't want the fire. But if you have a food on the fire, so then it's mitztamek v'yafalei. The longer it cooks, the more tastier it'll be. So here you still need it to be God of a cotton. There's the concern that you may stoke the coals. And therefore in this case it's going to be aser. And whatever is mitztamek v'yafalei, it condenses and gets tastier. And what's an example? Kogan kruv, cabbage, pulim, beans, ubasar, taruf, and minced meat or ground meat in a pot. Aser. It's going to be forbidden without a blech, and if you did this, if you left it there before Shabbos without God of a cotton, without a blech, it's going to be aser because the food gets tastier. But in any case which is mitztamek veraloi, and as we mentioned before, that's with water that's boiled, or any other foods that's mitztamek veraloi, that the longer it cooks it just gets ruined, mutter. Then it's going to be mutter without the blech. If you left it there before Shabbos, you're allowed to have a no from it. Now, the Gemara goes back to its question that it had and what Rab Chia bar Abba said. Katani miya. Either way, what did it say over here? Tafshel shaloi bishul kol tzarkai. Regarding a tafshel that was not cooked kol tzarkai, and it requires to be God of a kotum. What did it say in the Braisa? The Gemara doesn't quote it again, but it said before that we make a distinction between shegig and mezid. B'shegig you're allowed to eat it, and b'mezid you're not. That's not like Rab Chia bar Abba that said that we don't make a distinction between shegig and mezid. So now the Gemara will bring up both opinions we had before, whether by b'shegig and b'mezid were machmer, or by b'shegig and b'mezid were mekel. So the Gemara says as follows: Bish loim Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Now we can understand how we could answer this brayse here according to the opinion of Nachman by Yitzchak lo kashya. It wouldn't be a question. Kan kaidem gzeira, kan lach gzeira. This brayse was said before they made this additional gzeira that even a shegig should be aser. That was an additional gzeira, as the Gemara is going to quote soon, because there's a concern that a person might do it b'mezid and say that it was a shegig. So this brayse was learned before the gzeira. Rab Chia bar Abba was telling us that there was a gzeira that they made that even a shegig should be aser as well. So that we could answer. El Rabba v'Rav Yosef damri le teira. Rab and Rav Yosef that understood that what Rab Chia bar Abba said is that if you left the pot before Shabbos and it cooked there without a blech, without God of a kotam, then it's going to be mutter either shegig or mezid. So then we have a problem. If it's before the gzeira that they made on shegig, kashya mezid. The question is going to be regarding mezid. Why b'mezid does it say in the brayse it's aser if Rab Chia bar Abba said that even b'mezid it's mutter? Ila acha gzeira. If it's after they made a gzeira on both shegig and mezid that it should be aser, kashinami shegig. The question is going to be on Rab Chia bar Abba. How did he say that b'shegig is mutter? They made a gzeira that both shegig and mezid should be aser. So the Gemara concludes kashya. It remains a question. So this is what I mentioned before. Because this remains a question on this opinion, we paskin like Rav Nachman by Yitzchak's opinion that if someone left food on the fire in a case where it required a blech and there was no blech, so we'll machmer both b'shegig and b'mezid, you can't eat from it on Shabbos. But let me mention again what I said yesterday. In most cases, people that forget to put on a blech before Shabbos, it'll be allowed to eat from it on Shabbos. Because in most cases, it was either fully cooked, even if it's not fully cooked, there was at least a third cooked before Shabbos. Very likely you put it up, even if you put it up very close to Shabbos, but you put it up before Lichtzinden, so you have another 18 minutes until Shkia, so by that time it could be already a third cooked. And then once it's a third cooked, we could be makel like a Chananya that says you don't need a blech in that case. So in most cases, a person that forgot to put up a blech before Shabbos, it'll be allowed to eat from the food on Shabbos. But here's the thing, if you don't have a blech, if you're taking off the parachalon, you can never return it. Chazara, you can't put it back on the fire without a blech. That for sure requires a blech. Okay. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Mai Gezerte. What was the Gezere? Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shmuel, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rav. Betchila hayu oimrim. In the beginning it was said, Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'sheigig, yoichal b'mezid lo yoichal. If you cook on Shabbos b'sheigig, so you can eat it, and b'mezid you shouldn't eat it. And v'hu adin l'shecheach. And the same thing they said regarding a person that forgot the pot on the fire without the garaf and kotum. Misherabu mashin b'mezid. Now what happened is there were many people that would leave. This is talking now about the people that would leave the pot on the fire without the blech, and they did so b'mezid. V'oimrim shcheichem anu. And then they would come and say, "Oh, we just forgot." And as we mentioned before, since this is not a malacha of Shabbos, so people were more lenient about this, and they would say, we just forgot it, even though they did it b'mezid. Chazru v'konsu ala shecheach, they made an additional knas on shecheach, that both b'mezid and b'shoigig is going to be aser. Okay. Now, the Gemara goes back to the Braisa that was quoted before, where it brought the machlekes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda. And basically, the difference between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda was, Rab Meir said that boiling hot water and cooking food both have the same halacha. If it's fully boiled, fully cooked, then it's allowed, and if not, not. Rabbi Yehuda made a distinction between boiling hot water and cooking food. He said by boiling hot water, it's allowed because it's mitzamek verale, the water evaporates after that. By cooking food, since it could get tastier, so then it's not going to be allowed. That was a distinction. Now the Gemara is going to take us back to a braisa that we learned on Daf Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph, where there was also a braisa over there, machlekes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda, and seemingly what they say here contradicts what they said in that braisa. Let's see inside. Sagt the Gemara, now kashye de Rab Meir ad Rab Meir. We have a contradiction from what Rab Meir said over here to what Rab Meir said before. Right? So what Rab Meir said before on Daf Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph, there Rab Meir, according to Beis Hillel's opinion, did make a distinction between hot water and cooked foods. And over here, he doesn't. So what's going on? Do we make a distinction between hot water and cooked foods or not? That's the question of Rab Meir. And the same question is the opposite according to Rab Yehuda. Kashye de Rab Yehuda de Rab Yehuda. And there's also a stira of Rab Yehuda and Rab Yehuda. In the previous Braisa, Rab Yehuda did not make a distinction between hot water or food. Here, Rabbi Yehuda does make a distinction between hot water and food. That's the state here. So the Gemara answers that Rab Meir kolei kashya. The contradiction of Rab Meir's opinion is not a question. Before, when it spoke about the opinion of Beis Hillel, whether you need a blech or not, so Rab Meir was more machmer lechatchila. Rab Meir was saying lechatchila, so you have to be more machmer that the blech only works for cooked water, for boiled water, and not for hot food. Over here we're talking about b'diavad. Once a person left the food on the fire without a blech, here he was makel and said, once the water is boiled and the food is cooked, we compare both of them and we say that b'diavad it's mutter for a person to use it. That's the answer to the stira on Rab Meir. The Rabbi Yehuda, Nami loy kashe. It's also not a question. There's a difference between this braisa and the braisa before. Kan begrufa ktuma, kan b'sheine grufa ktuma. The Gemara before was talking about a stove and an oven that's grufa ktuma. So therefore, since it's grufa ktuma, over there he did not make any distinction between hot water or cooked food. Over there, once it's grufa ktuma, he held everything is mutter. And kam b'sheine grufa ktuma. Here we're talking about an oven that's not grufa ktuma. So therefore he says, well, there's going to be a difference between water and food, because water, it's mitztamik veraloi, the water just evaporates if you leave it there. So therefore he's not interested in having the fire anymore. So there's no issue of him coming to stoke the coals. And over here it's talking about eine grufa ktuma. So therefore there is an issue, and therefore again, the Braisa before is talking about Grufa Ktuma. Once it's Grufa Ktuma, so there's no difference between hot water and food. Once it's Grufa Ktuma, the coals are out. And over here it's talking about that it's not Grufa Ktuma, so therefore we make a distinction between water that evaporates and food that gets tastier. Sagt der Gemara weiter, the question was asked, Avar v'shohamai, if a person went and left the food on the fire, what's the halacha? Mikan sur Rabbanan, did Rabbanan make a knas that he could have a gnar from it, cannot have a gnar from it, or they did not make that knas? So all of the Rishonim asked the question, didn't we just discuss this? Even though the question that was asked all the way at the beginning of the Amud was a case of shachach k'teira, a person that forgot a pot. And here we're talking about a person that did it b'mezid. But the Gemara just explained that shoigig and mezid is the same. So why is the Gemara now asking a question about Avar V'Shah that he did it b'mezid? We just said we brought a machlekes between Rav Nachman v'Yitzchak and Rav Yosef. So there are many pshatim in the Rishonim about this. The pshat of the Marsha over here in Rashi, and the Ravid says the same pshat over here as well. Avar V'Shah is referring to a person that did not do it, not b'shoigig and not b'mezid. It's a case of an oimer mutter, a person that did not know. He thought it was totally mutter. He thought, no problem, I can keep it on the fire before Shabbos. He didn't know of the Gzeira de Rabbanan that it has to be God of a cotton. That's the case we're talking about over here. So did Chachamim make a knas for such an individual that thought it's mutter? Toshama, the Gemara brings a braisa as follows, a story as follows. When Rabbi Yossi traveled to Tzipaydi for Shabbos, Matzah Chamin Shenishtal Al Gabi Kira, he saw hot food that was left on the oven for Shabbos, V'lo Yasalem, and he didn't asa them from eating it. But there were beitzim with some makos Shenishtal Al Gabi Kira. There was eggs that were getting condensed by staying a long time on the fire on Shabbos, V'asalan, and that the beitzim he did not allow them to eat it on Shabbos. My love, don't you think what's the pshat here? La'oisa Shabbos. That Shabbos, he didn't allow them to eat it. Not only did he tell them that you shouldn't be doing this next Shabbos, he didn't allow them to eat it for this Shabbos. Now, the Gemara assumes that the pshat over here is that if these people left these eggs on the fire, they probably thought, just like the other foods that they left on the fire was allowed to be left on the fire without a blech, the eggs that could also leave on the fire without a blech. Why did they assume that? Because the food was fully cooked, the eggs were already boiled, and they figured, or fried, and therefore they figured we can leave it on the stove for Shabbos. So this was a case of oimer mutter. This is the way the Rishonim learned the pshat in this Gemara. And therefore he came and he taught them. There's a difference between the food and the eggs. The food, if you leave it on the fire, so it's going to be mitztamek viraloi. The food the food that they had there on the fire wasn't kind of food that's getting tastier. But the eggs was not allowed. Because as the Gemara will explain in a moment, the eggs is mitztamek v'yafloi. The longer you leave it on the fire, the more tastier it will become. So over here the Gemara says we have a raya of a case where the people did something, they thought it was mutter, he told them that it's aser, and still he asked them to use it on that Shabbos. That's the assumption. So the Gemara says, loy, that's not the pshat. When it says asar lahen l'Shabbos haba, he only asked that he told them, he explained them for the following Shabbos not to do so, but he didn't say that it's asar for this Shabbos. The only problem with this Gemara is, which the Mefarshim ask, maybe this whole story was a case of a shaygig, so then it's not a raya at all to the question that we had. Our question was a person that thought it's mutter. Maybe this whole story was a shaygig. They did so b'shaygig, forgetting, and he went and told them, don't do this again next Shabbos. Okay, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. Now, but the Gemara here continues and says regarding the eggs, Meklal, the beitzim with some mokos, mitztamkes v'yafalen. The eggs, the longer it stays in the fire, the better it is, the tastier it will become to eat. Yafalen nino. I'm not sure what kind of eggs we're talking about over here. It doesn't seem like we're talking about boiling eggs in water. Maybe we're talking about frying eggs. The longer you leave it on the fire, the more of a crusty it becomes, and the more tasty it is. Once myself and Rebbe were guests in a certain place. They brought in front of us eggs that were fried for a very long time, and it was totally condensed, congealed, whatever, condensed that is. Shrivel, okay, yeah. Uzrodin, like uzrodin. Uzrodin is, what's uzrodin?
Sob apples.
Okay, some kind of, and we ate a lot of this. It was like a delicacy, and it was very tasty. So you see that eggs left on a fire for a long time, to shriveled eggs is more tasty. Not sure what kind of meichel this is, but this is something that they ate then.
Rabbi says,
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this concludes the first subject of today's Gemara regarding a person that left foods on the fire without the proper god of a kotum. And as I mentioned, the halacha lemaisa is that we're very machmer regarding this, that Chachamim made a gzeira, that if you leave on the fires and the food in a case that it required a blech, and there was no blech, even whether it's b'shegig, whether it was b'mezid, you're not allowed to eat from that food on Shabbos. Now the Gemara goes to the halacha of chazara, returning a pot of food to the fire on Shabbos. You're allowed to return the food to the fire on Shabbos. And again, this is only talking in a case where it's gado v'kotum, where it's covered with a blech in our times. Rav Sheshes said, according to the opinion, according to Beis Shammai that says you could return the food to the fire on Shabbos, afila b'Shabbos. This includes, Rashi says, this means even on Shabbos day, not only Friday night, where it's more obvious that he took it off the fire with the intention to return it, because it's only at night and you want to still use the hot food for tomorrow. But even Shabbos day, where he took it off the fire, and you may think that he really took it off the fire, not planning on putting it back. He already wants to eat the cholent and he's not going to put it back. Even there, you're allowed to return it to the fire on Shabbos day. Rabbi Shia as well holds, Af machzirin afilu b'Shabbos, you could return it to the fire on Shabbos day. Rabbi Shia said the following incident. We were once on Shabbos in front of Rab Chia Rabba. And we brought him up a kettle of hot water. We took it off the fire and we brought it up for him. We brought it from the downstairs to upstairs. And we poured him water. We poured him water into the kais. And then we put it back to its place. And he didn't say anything to us. So this happened on Shabbos day, or others say the pshat over here is even though they brought it from downstairs to upstairs, so it wouldn't seem like they intended to put it back, but then they decided to put it back, and it's allowed. So over here we see that when you take something off the fire on Shabbos, whether it's Friday night or Shabbos day, you can put it back. This halacha that you could return the pot of food to the fire on Shabbos was only said it's only if you're still holding the pot in your hands. But if you place the food down on the floor, or in today's day and age, if you place it down on the counter, osir. Once it's put down on the counter, you're not allowed to return the pot to the fire on Shabbos. Now the Gemara says, Rab Tadoi, the Ovid Lagarmei, who the Ovid. What Rab Tadoi said, what he does for himself, he was doing, this is a chumrah, a isser for himself. But we don't hold like this. Even if you put it down on the counter, you could return it to the fire. Even if you placed it down on the counter, mutter, it's permitted. Now the Gemara brings Pligi ba Rav Dimi v'Rav Shmuel ba Yehuda. They both argued v'tarvai mishmed Rabbi Lazar, and they were both speaking in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Omri. Chadama, one said, oidem b'yadim mutter. If you're holding the pot in your hand, so you're allowed to return it to the fire. Agabi karka, if you placed it down on the ground or on the counter, osir. You can't put it back on the fire. V'chadamar, another opinion was, hinichon agabi karka, nami mutter. Even if you placed it down on the counter, it's also going to be mutter to return it to the fire on Shabbos. Omar Chizki mishmei da Abaye, ha de omrit oidon biyadoi mutter. Now the Gemara adds another condition. This that you said, that if he's still holding the pot in his hands, then you're allowed to put the pot back on the fire. Lo yamaron. It's only said if you have an additional condition. She'el shadaitoi lahachzer. When he took the pot off the fire, he had that intention that he's going to put it back on the fire. Aval ein daitoi lahachzer. Osir. If he did not have that intention, you can't put it back on the fire. The klal. So from this I see that al gabe karka. If you put it down on the counter or on the floor, aval b'shadaitoi lahachzer. Osir. Even if you had the intention to put it back, it's still going to be asr. In other words, what the Gemara is saying is you have to have two conditions in order to be able to put it back to the fire. He had the kavanah to put it back, l'chatchila, and he didn't put it down on the counter. Okay, we'll finish the Gemara, then I'll come back to halacha l'maisa the way it is today. Ikkedamri, there's another opinion that said the opposite. You only need one condition. Omachizki mishmei da Abaye, Ha the omeret al gabe karka osur. This that you said that once you put it down on the counter, you can't put it back. This is only in a case where he did not have an intention to put it back on the fire. If he had the intention to put it back on the fire, mutter, even if you put it on the counter, you would be allowed to put it back on the fire. So from this opinion I see, if he's still holding it in his hands, even if he never had the intention to put it back, it would be permitted. So this opinion is more makel. You only need one condition to be able to put it back on the fire. Either he had the intention to put it back, or he didn't put it down on the counter. You don't need both together. Okay, now before I go weiter, so what's the halacha over here when I get to this Indian? If you look in the Shulchan Aruch and then the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch as well, the halacha is even if you put it down on the pot, even if you put the pot down on the counter, that is, you're allowed to return it to the fire on Shabbos. However, the Ramah and the Alter Rebbe say toiv lahachmer. It's good to be machmer that once you put it down, not to put it back on the fire, and that's basically the minig and the halacha b'poil that once you put it.
Intention.
But that's a second point. You have to have the intention that you're putting it back on the fire. The question is, do you, besides that, in addition, have to hold the pot in your hands, or you're not allowed to put it down on the counter? So as I mentioned, the Ramah says you're allowed to put it down on the counter, but toiv lahachmer, that once you put it down on the counter, not to return it to the fire. Now, what does it mean putting it down on the karka? So there's a machlokes hapaiskim about this, but I believe that most opinions hold that putting it down on the karka means you place it down firmly on the counter, which means you totally left go from the pot, or it's on the counter in such a way that it's being held up by the counter. If you when you take a pot of cholent off the fire and you want to take out with one hand, so you can't hold it with both hands. If there's no one else going to help you there, you can't hold it with both hands, and while you're going to take out from the pot of cholent. So what do? You put it down on the counter and you hold the pot in your hands with one hand. Now, it doesn't just mean that you hold it while it's firmly fixed on the counter. You have to lift it a little bit. You have to hold it that it's not fully on the counter, right? And then you can serve from it and then return it to the fire on even on Shabbos. That's the halacha b'poil that we hold.
That's the chumrah.
What?
That's the chumrah.
Yeah, that, and even this is only toiv lahachmer. It's only toiv lahachmer, but b'diavad, if you want to put it back, if you put it back after you put it down on the counter, it's okay.
As long as you have.
If you had the kavanah before, if you had the kavanah to return it, b'diavad, you can put it back. As we see over here in the Gemara, many opinions hold that even if you put it down, you could return it to the fire. And in the Rishonim, there's even more opinions that say so, that even if you took it off and put it on the counter, you could put it back on the fire. That's the majority opinion in the Rishonim. It's only a toiv lahachmer that once you put it down, we don't put it back on the fire. Now the Gemara asks, Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, Talon b'makal mahu. What's if you did not put it down on a counter, such a firm and established place, but you hung it on a makal, you hung it on a peg or something? Mahu. What's the halacha? Are you allowed to return it to the fire? Henichan al gabi mito. You didn't put it on the karka or on a counter, but you put it on a bed, or you took the pot and you put it on a couch or something else. Mahu. What's the halacha? Could you return it to the fire? Boy Rav Ashi pinon mimechem lemechem mahu. What's the halacha if the person poured the food from one pot to another pot? What's going to be the din? Are you allowed to return the pot to the fire? Teiku. All these cases, the teiku. Gemara doesn't answer. Now, of course, let me just mention one obvious point here. When we talk about returning a pot to the fire, a pot of food to the fire on Shabbos, of course, we're talking about a case where you're taking it off for a very short period of time and the food is still steaming, boiling hot, like it was when it was on the fire. If you leave the pot off the fire long enough that it cools off a bit, and then you want to return it to the fire, it's for sure not permitted. You're cooking on Shabbos. We're all talking about a case where it's just for a short period of time. Okay, let's go weiter. Now the Gemara is going to bring the next, we have the next Mishnah here, which finishes off the halachas of Shehiyah and Chazara regarding the, as I mentioned in the beginning of the Perek, there's another two kinds of ovens that they had in the times of the Gemara. Tanner. In the beginning we were talking about a kira. What's a kira? So as the Gemara will soon describe, the kira is a rectangle-shaped oven which has space for two pots inside of it, and that does not have a very strong amount of heat as a tanner. A tanner is wide at the bottom and narrow at the top. It's a cone-shaped oven, and therefore it contains the heat in it much, much stronger. So therefore by a tanner they were much more machmer. So therefore, tanish esiku bekasha begvava, even if it was heated just with straw and stubble, layiten, you're not allowed to place a pot on it, beim mitoicha, beim malgabov, whether on the inside, whether on top, because even though it has a very inferior material used for the fire, but whatever material that was used, it has its heat very strongly there, and was still chayshish that a person, whatever leftover sparks or coals there might be in there, a person may come to stoke it on Shabbos. Kupach. Now there's another kind of oven which is called a kupach, which the Gemara will soon describe. A kupach is the same as a kira, but it's square. It only has space for one pot, not two pots. So this kupach she'esiku b'kasha b'gvava, if it was heated with straw or stubble, then areze kekirayim. We give it the halacha of a kirayim, which is more mekel. You can once it's b'kasha b'gvava, you can leave the pot there, and like the halacha of a kirayim. B'gefes u'be'etzim, but if you heated it with much better material, you used, as we learned before, gefes is the pulp of sesame seeds or the pulp of olives, then, or wood, harei kutana. Then we treat it like a tanar, which is much hotter, and therefore it's not going to help even to make it garuf and kotum, and it's going to be asar on Shabbos. So the kupach is right in between, as the Gemara will explain. It's in between the tanor and the kirayim. Zok the Gemara, Tana she'esikuhu, a Tana that was heated up. So now, Savar Rav Yosef L'meimar, Rav Yosef thought to say, Toichai, it says in the Mishnah Toichai. You're not allowed to place a pot of food inside of it. Toichai mamish. That means only if you're placing it inside. Al Gabov. It also says you're not allowed to place the food on top, whether you put it on the rim or on a cover on top of the Tanner. It's also only Al Gabov mamish, if you're placing it on top of the Tanner. Avalismoich. But how about putting it near the wall of the Tana? Shapidami. That should be allowed. Because in the Mishnah it doesn't say that. It only says Toichay and Al Gabav. Eis ve'Abaye. So Abaye asked on this interpretation based on what it says in the Sefer of the Mishnah. What did it say in the Sefer? Kupach she'esikuhu b'kasha b'gvava. The kupach that was heated with straw or stubble. Harehu kikirayim. Then it has the halacha more lenient, like a kira. The gefes abeitzim, if it was heated with the better quality, with wood or with the pulp of the olives, so then arei ketana. Then we're more machmer, and it has the halacha like ketana. V'asar, and it's asar. So now the Gemara analyzes this sefer here. Let's see. Ha kikira. So now you're saying that when he heated it with gefes and eitzim, then we're more machmer that it should be like a tanner, and it'll be asar. Meaning, ha kikira. If it would have had a halacha like a kira, shari, then it would have been mutter. It's only asa because we treat it like a tanner, which is more chomer. B'mayaskinan. Where is there a case where there's a distinction between a kira and a tanner? Ile mal gabov is the case that he's placing the pot of food on top of the oven. Ubemai, and in what case? Ile mikisha eina god of a kotum. When the oven is not god of a kotum, the coals are still inside. So there's no difference between a kira and a tanner. El akira ki eina grufa ktuma. A kira, if it's not god of and kotum, al gabav mishari. Are you allowed to place a pot of food on top of it? So why did it say in the Mishnah that a kupach, when the fire comes from gefes and eitzim, so we're going to be machmer that it should be like a tanner. Even if it wasn't like a tanner, even if it was just like a kira, it's still going to be yaser. Ella, so don't you think that the pshat of the Mishnah is lav lismich? The Mishnah is not talking about placing it on top of the oven. It's talking about placing it near the wall of the oven. And here there's a difference between a tanner and a kira. The ketani, and it says in the Sefer of the Mishnah, hareo kataner va'aser, and we're saying that regarding a tanner which is very hot, even placing it near the wall, it's going to be aser. But by a kira, placing it near the wall will be mutter. So this is the only way to explain the Sefer of the Mishnah, that to be saimech by a tanner is aser. So this is a question of Rav Yosef that said that to be saimech, to put it near the wall, is not a problem. Ravada Barava answers no. Hacha bekupach god of a kotum. We're talking about a kupach that the coals were god of a kotum. They were shoveled out, they were covered. V'tanor grufa ktuma. And also we're talking about a tanor that's god of and kotum, maskina. That's what we're talking about. Harei hu ketaner. So when the Mishnah says that the kupach has a halacha like a tanner, what does this mean? The afagava god of a kotum. When it comes to a tanner, even if you shoveled out all the coals or you cover the coals, al gabav aser, you're not allowed to place a pot on top of it. The kikira, if it would have been like a kira, kigrufa ktuma shapedami, once you shovel it out, it's okay. So now there's no issue that you're going to come to stoke the coals. So let me just explain. The Rishonim here asked the question, if you shoveled out the coals, so then what would be the chash? Even in a tana that's very, very hot, but you shoveled out all the coals. What's going to happen? What is he going to do? There's no coals to stoke the flames over here. So one of the answers given, and the Alter Rebbe brings us to Shulchan Aruch, is even when you shovel out all the coals, there's still going to be some remainder over there, some spark, something left over from the coals. And therefore, by a tanner that's very, very hot, and the person wants and is relying on that heat, he may come to stoke the flames. When it comes to a kirayim, though, once you shovel it out, even if there's a little bit left over, since it's not so hot, we're not choishish that he's going to come and stoke the flames. So over here, this raya against Rav Yosef was refuted. But now the Gemara brings another braisa that says like Abaya, that when it comes to a tanner, putting it near the walls of a tanner, which is very hot, is a problem. Tanya kavasada Abaya, tanner sheisiku bekasha bekvava, an oven that was heated with straw and stubble, ein simchanlai. You're not allowed to put it near the wall, so it says clearly, ein simchanlai. Vein tzarech laim al gabav, needless to say, you're not allowed to put the pot of food on top of the oven. Vein tzarech laim al teicha, needless to say, you're not allowed to put it inside the oven. Vein tzarech laim, now needless to say, begefes or beitzim, that if it was heated up with gefes and eitzim, which is very hot, for sure you're not allowed to do all of this. Now, kupach sheisiku bekasha bekvava, a kupach that was heated up with straw and stubble, saibchanlai, you can put the pot of food near the walls of the oven, but you can't put it on top of the oven. If it was heated up with gefes and eitzim, then you're not allowed to put it near the walls like the tanner. So we see here clearly, like Abaye's opinion, that there's an issue of putting it near the walls of the tanner. So he said to Rav Ashi as follows: Hi kupach hechidami. What's the story with this kupach? Ikakira dami. If it's like a kira and it has that level of heat like a kira, so then afilu begefes veitzim nami. So then even regarding a case where he heated it up with a good quality of gefes and eitzim and it's hotter, so also it should be have the halacha like a kira. Ikatana dami, and if it has the heat like a tanor, so then afilu bekasha gvava nami loy. So even with kasha gvava, you should also be machmer like a tanner, that you're not allowed to put it in the oven. What's the difference? Why sometimes we say it's like a kira and sometimes we say it's like a tanner? Amalei, Rav Ashi answered him, Nafish havle midikira. A kupach has more heat than a kira because it has a smaller opening. It's not a double opening, it's a smaller opening. But vizutar havle miditaner. But it has less heat than the tanner, which has a narrow opening on the top and it contains its heat much more. Now the Gemara explains the shape. Heichidami kupach, heichidami kira. What's a kupach and what's a kira? Amr Rav Yosi bar Chanina. Kupach makim shvisas k'dei rachas. Kupach is square and it only has space for one pot. Kira makim shvisas shtei k'deiris. Kira has space for two pots. Amr Abaye v'teimer Rav Yirmiyah afanan nami tanina. We also can see this in a Mishnah that we learned. Kira. So this is the halacha regarding tumah. What happens by halacha of tumah if something becomes tameh? How do you, well, especially if it's a cheres, the only way to be metayr a cheres, it's actually in this week's parsha, in Parsha Shmini. How you metayr a cheres? You can't be toilet in a mikveh. What do you do with a cheres? You have to break it. So now it says a kira shenech lekala orka. If you have a kira, which is a rectangular shaped oven, space for two pots, so if it was split in the length tahira, so then it's tahir. Because you can't use this oven anymore. It was cracked right in the middle, straight through, so you can't use it anymore, so therefore that makes it tohir. L'rochba, but if it was broken down in the middle in its width, then tmeya, it's still tummy, because now you basically have two ovens that can be used separately. A kira is when you have a square-shaped oven where you can place two pots inside, so if you cut it down right in the middle, you can still use them separately. So it's not ois keli, it's still a good keli. Kupach ben la'orka ben la'rachbay Torah. Kupach, which is a square oven that you could place only one pot inside, whether you split it down in the width or split it down in the length, either way, it's going to be tocher, because it's not a keli anymore. Okay, there's a new Mishnah over here. I was going to start a new Mishnah actually to go a little bit further, but Daf Lamed Tes is a shorter daf. So Mitzvah tomorrow we're going to have a lot of time to continue further onto Daf Mem, And then Daf Mem Aleph is a shorter daf, so Mitzvah will have time to be mashlim. So tomorrow's shir, we definitely will have time to do more than the Daf Lamed Tes. Have a very good day, everybody. A good Mayid.